Please welcome to the stage the Mayor of Rio de Janeiro, Eduardo Paes, for the launch of the Anti-Racist Cities Network.
Good afternoon. So if you can get the phones, I'll speak in Portuguese because there's a bunch of Brazilians here, so we need to be supportive. Queria saudar a todos e todas. Eu acho que esse é um momento bastante importante. Eu queria cumprimentar o prefeito de Denver, agradecer ao Departamento de Estado americano por organizar esse importante encontro. Acho que aqui nós iniciamos um processo, redes de cidades, associações de municipalidades, de prefeitos, não é algo, é algo que é bastante usual, mas dificilmente se tem um evento em que se unem cidades do continente americano, promovido e apoiado por uma entidade governamental, por um governo como o Departamento de Estado. Então é um prazer e uma honra muito grande estar aqui. Queria saudar todas as autoridades aqui reunidas que representam cidades, governos regionais, federais, organizações nacionais e internacionais e sociedade civil. Eu queria, já disse aqui, saudar o nosso prefeito de Denver, parabenizar ele pela organização nessa cidade incrível. E hoje aqui nós estamos fazendo a assinatura do Pacto de Combate ao Racismo e Promoção da Igualdade Racial, que hoje cria a Rede Global de Cidades Antirracistas. Eu diria que esse é um marco histórico, não apenas para nossas cidades, mas para toda a humanidade, porque a pauta antirracista é, antes de tudo, uma questão civilizatória. Não há justiça sem igualdade. A cidade do Rio ela tem um papel central na organização e sobrevivência cultural da diáspora negra, de suas matrizes africanas e da sua presença e relevância para a formação da sociedade brasileira. A minha cidade, a cidade do Rio de Janeiro, tem a sua história marcada pela trágica escravização de seres humanos. Pelo Cais do Valongo, o principal porto de entrada de africanos escravizados no Brasil e nas Américas, a cidade do Rio de Janeiro recebeu cerca de 1 milhão de africanos escravizados, tornando-se o maior porto receptor de escravos do mundo. Ao nos engajarmos em uma rede, ampliamos as possibilidades de melhorar nossas cidades e o nosso potencial de colaboração. Alcançar a igualdade racial é uma tarefa e uma missão para todos nós. Temos o dever de defender e construir o direito à cidade antirracista, tomando por base não só as desigualdades sociais, mas a perspectiva interseccional dessas desigualdades. Isso significa compreender as realidades das nossas diferentes populações a partir de variáveis fundamentais como a cor, a etnia e o gênero. E é isso que nós faremos pela Rede Global de Cidades Antirracistas. Por meio da cooperação internacional, pensaremos de forma coordenada e sistemática a política urbana de dezenas e futuramente centenas de municípios. Faremos isso com um olhar atento às diferenças que nos constituem, mas unidos por um mesmo objetivo. A Rede Global de Cidades Antirracistas é uma rede de inovação do setor público que tem como objetivo o compartilhamento de experiências de políticas públicas exitosas e o apoio mútuo entre seus membros. Juntos, os municípios signatários representam milhões de pessoas. São cidadãos que serão impactados pelas políticas públicas antirracistas nas mais diversas áreas-chave, como saúde, educação, segurança, patrimônio cultural, material e imaterial, sustentabilidade ambiental, economia, empreendedorismo, trabalho e cultura. Hoje damos mais um passo em direção à compreensão de que as cidades importam para a construção de um desenvolvimento urbano mais inclusivo, sustentável e globalmente antirracista. Com a construção da rede global de cidades antirracistas, o antirracismo deixa de ser apenas uma declaração e torna-se o nosso método de ação. Agradeço às cidades signatárias e a todos aqui presentes pelo apoio contínuo dado ao Rio no âmbito de sua presidência pro tempore, que agora se inicia. Nosso compromisso é com o desenvolvimento de políticas de longo prazo que criem oportunidades para que todos, sem distinção, possam prosperar. Por fim, eu expresso mais uma vez a minha felicidade com o lançamento global da rede de cidades antirracistas e reforço o compromisso do Rio de Janeiro em combater o racismo, a xenofobia, o preconceito e quaisquer outras formas de discriminação. Juntos, vamos rumo à construção de uma sociedade democrática, justa e pacífica. Muito obrigado.
And now we would like to invite to the stage mayors participating in the signing of the Pact for Combating Racism and Promoting Ethnico-Racial Equity.
Eu acho que ela falou que é para os prefeitos que estiverem aqui subir aqui. Tem uma foto oficial. O Axel Grael podia ser o primeiro a estimular aqui. Senhores prefeitos e prefeitas, representantes de cidades aqui, mayors e mayors, alcaldes, alcaldessas. Foto oficial.
Parabéns.
An official picture.
And now we would like to welcome you to the session on financing subnational action for sustainable development organized by the Inter-American Development Bank. Introducing to the stage PwC Global Leader for Cities and Local Government, Hazem Galal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. Boa tarde a todos. What I would like to do in the coming 8 minutes or so is to set up the stage for the coming two panels, where we're going to hear from the demand side, a city's perspective, and the supply side from the funding institutions. A lot of the work that we've done so far is based on a report that we developed late 2022 with the World Economic Forum, with the Global Future Council for the Cities of Tomorrow, which is a council that actually unites representatives from cities, current mayors, former mayors, private sector institutions, and global think tanks, multilateral development banks. And in this report, we were trying to answer the question, how can cities be better prepared and to mobilize the resources that they need to fund their infrastructure needs and to become more resilient and meet their goals? And whether you think that the current funding gap is 15 trillion between now and 2040, or whichever numbers that you actually are going to use, there's a huge gap between the supply side and the demand side. And this report attempted actually to look at practical recommendations for cities to help them bridge that gap. So we looked at the different sources of funding that cities would typically have, not only the conventional ones, but also looking into some innovative ways that they can secure their investments. We've also looked at the impact of COVID-19 and how that has actually exaggerated what was already a bad situation for several cities around the world into even a worse situation and has hindered their recovery. But we've also looked at what we call the city typologies, taking into context the level of autonomy that a city has and its ability actually to finance its resources. What were some of the key barriers to finance that we've seen? Some of it is actually the lack of ability, especially in medium-sized and smaller cities, to prepare the business cases for what we call bankable projects. So how is it that they would have the human talent and the human capital that would allow them to attract the funding from the financing institution? Some of them also are not aware. They don't have the necessary knowledge of the different sources of funding that are out there, whether it's multilateral development bank or other possible global funds. There is also limited engagement with the private sector. And sometimes you would bring in the private sector at a late stage and you would design a public-private partnership which isn't really well designed to attract the necessary interest from the private sector. Also, the lack of ability to have emergency for situations like COVID or any other emergencies that a city could face. And when you look at some of the other barriers, whether it's governance, the ability to make those decisions in a timely manner, the regulations, procurement, even as mundane as some people think it is, sometimes it is not, up to the type of investments that we're trying to get and so forth. So with all of these obstacles in mind, we started to look at what are some of the solutions that we are able actually to address those, and what are some of the things that we have to take into consideration based on some experiences of models that have worked in many different ways. You see here, municipal bonds is probably one of the most traditional ways, very successful here in the US, and will even pick up even further. It's very interesting to see as well that with the infrastructure bill, with the Building Back Better in Europe and many other sort of like initiatives post-COVID that are aiming to rebuild the city infrastructure and to bridge that gap, but doing it in a way that would better prepare cities to become more resilient and sustainable. There is also land value capture. Sao Paulo in Brazil, through the CPAC program, was one of the first cities that implemented that. But in order to be able to do land value capture, you have to have accurate registries, and also for municipal bonds, you need to have also credit worthiness and rating and all of that. So you would see that each one of these tools would actually have some prerequisites that need to be in place to benefit from them. Blended finance, we have the example of Colombia and some of the funding that has happened there that actually incentivizes commercial banks to fund some of these projects, and it's been in place since the 80s. And then what I call not necessarily public-private partnerships, but properly planned projects, or PPPs. And here, the idea is to engage the private sector, not only in the procurement stage and the implementation stage of a project, but to bring them early on in the design and the planning process of these projects so that they are attractive enough. As most consultants, we love 2x2 matrices, and what we wanted to think about is how do we actually divide those cities out there based on two axes or two variables. One of them is the political autonomy, the ability of a city to make its own policies, regulations within the national context. So on one extreme, you have the highly autonomous cities, typically city-states like Singapore. And then in other countries, there is a very high dependence on the national government and funding coming from national ministries, and those are low on political autonomy. And then the other axis is the financial self-sufficiency. That is the ability of a city to generate revenues from its own assets and resources. It could be low and high. And we're not saying that you necessarily have to be on the high self-reliance side to be successful. But what's important is that you realize your context as a city and start taking the necessary actions and policies in place so that you can either bridge the gap of communication with the national government if you have less autonomy to be able to collaborate and to benefit from some of those national programs, or to start thinking about how to better use your assets and resources to generate higher financial sufficiency. In conclusion, when we looked at all of these experiences and the experts that worked on this, we found that there are several actions and enablers that a city would need to have in place. You need to maximize the return of existing assets. A city like Melbourne, for example, before they invest in any new infrastructure, they make sure that they are getting the full value of their existing infrastructure and assets, be it schools, hospitals, or roads. So it's very important also to build the ability and the capability to be able to use your existing assets. The stewardship of city financing. Yesterday we heard from the mayor of Curitiba. He was talking about the ability of him to have a budget surplus and how that has helped the city face COVID, actually, and finance vaccines when the national government wasn't really doing that, and also to be able to invest in further projects afterwards to electrify the bus network that they have. A long-term planning perspective is also very important, so that you're also not only looking for the planning cycle of these resources within one or two mandates, but to think about sort of like a total cost of ownership to assets, and also the innovation. The ICT sector and technology offer us a lot of innovative ways of partnerships with the private sector, and it's important that we start thinking of how do we apply some of these models into other areas and other asset classes, and then the effective partnerships in an ecosystem with the private sector, with academia, and so forth. And of course, the enablers that you see here in the bottom, regulations, talent and knowledge, stakeholder engagement, and most importantly, digitalization, are all enablers that cities need to have. You're going to see in the next two panels right now how cities actually view these things, and then in the following one, how the funding organizations are actually looking at this. Thank you very much for your attention.
Please welcome to the stage Manager of the IDB's Climate Change and Sustainable Development Sector, Juan Pablo Bonilla. Mayor of Santo Domingo, Carolina Mejía, and Mayor of Rio de Janeiro, Eduardo Paes, for the City's Perspectives panel organized by IDB.
Eduardo acá, listo, acá.
sentamos. Okay.
Bueno, good afternoon, buenas tardes, boa tarde, Eduardo, para todos ustedes. Mi nombre es Juan Pablo Bonilla, soy el gerente de Desarrollo Sostenible y Cambio Climático del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. Y para mí es un orgullo estar acá con dos superalcaldes de América Latina y el Caribe, que no solo son superalcaldes, sino grandes amigos. Y bueno, quiero empezar por agradecer a la ciudad de Denver, el estado de Colorado, todo el Board Chair of the Bienal de las Américas, el Departamento de Estado de los Estados Unidos y todas las personas, organizaciones que han hecho posible este gran evento. Ayer el Banco Interamericano organizó la red de alcaldes de América Latina y el Caribe como parte de este gran evento y celebrábamos que por primera vez se está haciendo una reunión de alcaldes de todas las Américas para hablar no solo de financiamiento, sino de soluciones locales. Y como Hazem presentaba, hay diferentes instrumentos, pero también hay muchas barreras que nuestros alcaldes tienen. Y a mí me gustaría decirles dos cosas antes de empezar con las preguntas. Primero, felicitar a Eduardo por el lanzamiento que acaba de hacer de la red antirracismo de ciudades. El tema de inclusión y diversidad se está volviendo parte del DNA de nuestras ciudades y lo digo con mucho orgullo como latinoamericano. Y Carolina es la primera alcaldesa de Santo Domingo en más de 500 años de historia de Santo Domingo y por primera vez Santo Domingo tiene un departamento de inclusión que ella creó. Así que yo creo que tenemos un ejemplo de dos alcaldes que están liderando el tema de inclusión y diversidad, así que quiero pedir un aplauso para ellos dos. Bueno, ahora sí empecemos con financiación. Vimos todas las herramientas que nos presentaron anteriormente. Ayer, con el presidente del Banco Interamericano que nos acompañó esta mañana, Ilan hablaba de la importancia de trabajar en un programa que el banco va a desarrollar con ciudades, en la parte financiera, cómo apoyar a las ciudades en su mejoramiento financiero, para también poder tener luego buena preparación de proyectos y cómo poder compartir experiencias en esto. Así que creo que es una muy buena manera de empezar esta conversación. Empecemos por las mujeres. Carolina, visité Santo Domingo el año pasado en agosto y tenemos un programa contigo muy lindo de revitalización del centro, pero nos mostraste una cantidad de cosas que estás haciendo. ¿Cómo has logrado hacer el saneamiento fiscal de Santo Domingo y al mismo tiempo hacer inversiones en desarrollo sostenible?
Mira, bueno, lo primero es agradecer el honor de estar aquí en este panel, Juan Pablo, contigo, con Eduardo, y entre tantas personas maravillosas aquí, yo quiero decir que estoy compartiendo esta gran cumbre de ciudades con varios alcaldes de mi país, que no puedo dejar de mencionar que se encuentran aquí. Están el alcalde de La Vega, la alcaldesa de Salcedo, de Nigua, de Barahona, de Verón. Realmente es un privilegio para mí estar aquí entre compañeros. Un aplauso, sí, a los dominicanos aquí. Mira, nosotros tenemos complicaciones financieras enormes porque el presupuesto es bastante pequeño y las competencias legales que nosotros tenemos en términos de lo que la ley nos otorga como municipalidad, pues también hay una enorme oportunidad de hacer las cosas diferentes. Pero para poder hacer los proyectos que hemos desarrollado, hemos tenido que hacer una reestructuración financiera y tener las mejores prácticas financieras posibles. En el lado de los gastos, tuvimos la oportunidad de renegociar los contratos de recogida de desechos. Cuando tú ves el presupuesto de Santo Domingo, el 70-76% del mismo se gasta en tres cosas fundamentalmente. Una, los contratos de recogida de desechos. La segunda es en el pago de la parte eléctrica del servicio que se le da al espacio público y el tercero es en la nómina de la institución, muy poco. Tú dices, bueno, un 76% es mucho. Sí, porque el presupuesto es muy pequeño. Entonces, fuera de eso, ¿qué te queda? Hemos tenido que también del lado de las recaudaciones, mejorarlas sobre la base de una gestión más eficiente. Y hemos podido incrementar en un 26% las recaudaciones en estos 3 años que tenemos frente a la ciudad. El asunto, digamos, hemos tenido que generar de manera innovadora oportunidades con el sector privado para poder desarrollar y construir bienestar para los ciudadanos. Hemos propuesto la recuperación de parques y plazas de Santo Domingo, ya tenemos 142 espacios recuperados en una alianza público-privada que ha sido muy fructífera. Lo que ha requerido es de mucha disciplina financiera, Juan Pablo, mucha disciplina.
Bueno, hablando de disciplina, vamos a seguir apoyando a Carolina ahora ya en toda la actualización catastral de Santo Domingo.
Esa noticia me la dieron aquí. O sea que tenemos buenas noticias para Ciudad Colonial. Vale la pena resaltar el programa de revitalización de Ciudad Colonial. Para quienes no lo saben, nuestra ciudad es la primada de América. Y no solamente con el apoyo a este proyecto de desarrollo sostenible, está enfocado a la parte de infraestructura. Hay que decir que es una visión holística donde se está trabajando el bienestar de la gente también que vive en Ciudad Colonial. Eso es importante porque el centro de las políticas públicas nuestras es el bienestar de la gente. Y en todos los proyectos que desarrollamos, pues bueno, eso es lo que perseguimos.
Muy bien. Eduardo, ayer teníamos una conversación muy interesante con el alcalde de Curitiba y nos decía que ya ha sido alcalde prefeito 3 veces, que fue ministro de Fernando Enrique Cardoso, pero que a él le encantaba ser alcalde. Tú también estás en tu 3er periodo y hemos aprendido mucho en el banco, nos acompañaste durante un tiempo aprendiendo de muchas cosas que habías hecho en Río. A mí me gustaría que compartas con no solo el público, con todos los alcaldes y secretarios de Hacienda que nos están viendo municipales, ¿cuál ha sido el éxito de Río desde el punto de vista financiero para poder hacer toda la transformación urbana y todas las inversiones que tú has logrado en los 3 periodos como alcalde?
Ok, voy a hablar en portugués.
Por favor.
Ni voy a tentar mi portunhol.
Fale português.
Mas olha, eu primeiro cumprimentar aqui essa grande prefeita, Carolina, dizer que é um prazer enorme estar ao seu lado aqui. Fazer uma revelação aqui, a maioria dos meus colegas brasileiros que estão aqui não sabem, mas esse sujeito ali à minha direita, o Juan Pablo Bonilla, foi meu patrão, meu chefe, durante um ano, quando eu trabalhei no Banco Interamericano de Desenvolvimento, em 2017. Então, é uma honra poder estar aqui com você de novo, Juan Pablo, falando como prefeito, num ambiente como esse, num encontro tão importante como esse. A saúde fiscal, a organização das contas públicas, ela é algo absolutamente fundamental e necessário para que a gente possa implementar qualquer tipo de política. Não é o passado latino-americano, eu vou talvez excluir aqui um pouco os Estados Unidos dessa relação, mas o passado, a história latino-americana, é uma história em geral, de governos populistas em todos os níveis, muito pouco responsáveis com a capacidade e a continuidade dos governos que virão posteriormente de conduzir as políticas públicas ou de manter as políticas públicas. Eu acho que essa cultura, ela ao longo das 2 últimas décadas, ela foi se consolidando pela região. Não quero dizer que é a perfeição, mas se a gente vai olhando o arcabouço institucional do Brasil, da Colômbia, de vários países da região, o que a gente vai percebendo é que as pessoas, que há uma montagem de um arcabouço institucional que exige um respeito a certos parâmetros fiscais. Por que isso é importante? Porque aqui há, e essa é a realidade das nossas regiões, dos nossos países, há sempre uma escassez de recursos. Nós vamos ouvir isso de qualquer prefeito. Se a gente for para um prefeito de alguma rica cidade americana, provavelmente o prefeito de Denver se tivesse essa mesa aqui, ele ia dizer que não tem dinheiro suficiente para cumprir com as responsabilidades da cidade de Denver. Isso vale para prefeitos de cidades europeias em qualquer lugar do mundo. Mas, no caso dos países latino-americanos, muito especialmente, você tem uma dificuldade maior de construção de recursos. E aí é que entra a importância da gente ter um ajuste fiscal, uma organização das contas, para que a gente possa ser original na construção dessas políticas públicas. A Carolina acabou de dizer aqui, nós já fizemos 100 e tantas praças, espaços públicos, financiados numa parceria público-privada, aliança público-privada, como ela disse aqui. Isso só pode acontecer, só se dá quando as diferentes instituições, ou do setor público, ou do setor privado, organismos multilaterais, como o BID, como o Exim Bank, como o Banco Mundial, percebem que há uma organização nas finanças daquele ente, daquele município, daquela municipalidade, permitindo, portanto, que você aporte recursos, você vai receber esse recurso ali na frente, o governo vai ter capacidade de cumprir com as suas obrigações. Eu queria dar um caso aqui, Juan Pablo, que é, na minha opinião, radical. Nós tivemos a honra de realizar em 2016 os Jogos Olímpicos do Rio de Janeiro. Acreditem se quiser, mas as Olimpíadas do Rio foram as Olimpíadas mais baratas da história e as Olimpíadas em que mais se aportou recursos privados. O Parque Olímpico da cidade do Rio de Janeiro, o espaço onde tinham ali vários estádios, onde era uma espécie de tinha um protagonismo das Olimpíadas, foi fruto de uma PPP, de uma aliança público-privada, de uma parceria público-privada, como a gente chama no Brasil. A Vila dos Atletas, onde os atletas das Olimpíadas ficavam, foi fruto de uma parceria privada. Nós só não fizemos parcerias privadas aonde era obrigação de governo investir e que aquilo significasse algo permanente para a cidade, por exemplo, na área de transporte, né? Quando você fez os investimentos públicos. Então, isso é fruto de ajuste fiscal, de organização, de controle das finanças públicas. Eu vi aqui na apresentação que nos antecedeu uma série de premissas, autonomia e essa autonomia dos municípios, e aí eu quero destacar isso. Se eu estiver passando muito do meu tempo, você me faz um sinal aqui, Juan Pablo, mas quero destacar muito isso. Os municípios são, quando se vai falar, por exemplo, de desenvolvimento sustentável, os municípios têm um papel muito importante a cumprir. Eu me lembro em 2015, na Conferência de Paris, eu era à época presidente do C40, acompanhado ali, recebido pela futura presidente, a Ana Hidalgo, futura presidente do C40, o que o C40 mostrava, em diferentes organizações, tem aqui o pessoal da Resilient Cities, tem o pessoal da Metrópolis aqui, enfim, é um conjunto de associações e redes de cidades, o papel que as cidades podem cumprir nos desafios das mudanças climáticas é um papel absolutamente fundamental. Por isso, cada vez mais, essa autonomia misturada com uma capacidade de organização e de investimento das cidades é fundamental para cumprir as políticas públicas e para esses desafios que são desafios mundiais, como, por exemplo, as metas de Paris. Né? Os municípios podem, de fato, fazer uma diferença e cada vez ganham mais protagonismo. Não é à toa que nós estamos aqui nesse encontro, nesse evento, organizado pelo Departamento de Estado americano, por perceber que as decisões dos líderes nacionais são importantes, mas se elas não são trazidas para o nível local, a capacidade delas se tornarem efetivas, de gerarem algum resultado, ela é muito diminuída.
Gracias, Eduardo, muito obrigado. Mencionas algo que es fundamental y es el rol de las ciudades en todo lo que son los planes de acción climática, los NDCs y cómo se va a financiar esto. Y ahí, Carolina, yo te quería hacer una pregunta. Hemos visto muchos ejemplos entre ayer y hoy de ciudades de Estados Unidos que han puesto sus finanzas en orden, tienen una buena evaluación de las agencias de riesgo y pueden, por ejemplo, emitir bonos vinculados a sostenibilidad para financiamiento de proyectos. Con los alcaldes de nuestra región hemos visto que en algunos países se puede hacer, en otros países no. ¿Cuál es el caso de República Dominicana, Carolina?
Mira, Juan Pablo, justamente cuando Eduardo hablaba de autonomía, ahorita cuando yo te decía de las competencias que nosotros tenemos, que es una de las oportunidades, yo estoy seguro que mis compañeros alcaldes están de acuerdo conmigo, es de las grandes oportunidades que tenemos en el país, de realmente descentralizar la gestión pública y lograr mayor fortalecimiento a los gobiernos locales. Y en ese sentido, como tú bien decías, para que aquí conozcan un poquito más sobre la municipalidad en República Dominicana, nosotros no tenemos la autonomía de tomar ni de tener ese tipo de financiamiento para proyectos. Tenemos que ir a través del gobierno central. Por ejemplo, con las Naciones Unidas hemos desarrollado diferentes proyectos en su momento y esa experiencia con organismos multilaterales nos ha permitido, nos ha acercado a tener proyectos como los que tenemos también con ustedes, pero siempre a través del gobierno central. Y de las cosas que son necesarias, si yo te digo ahora, imagínate cómo yo pudiera calificar como ciudad si es la primera vez en la historia que la ciudad de Santo Domingo logró renegociar su deuda y tiene deuda cero a largo y a corto plazo. No tenemos deuda bancaria, pagamos totalmente la deuda que había acumulada del servicio de recogida de desechos, que era un tema muy importante para la ciudad. Entonces, con ese saneamiento de nuestras finanzas, con un proceso de incremento en las recaudaciones a través de incentivos para que la gente con programas de descuento se pusiera al día en el pago de sus obligaciones con la ciudad, básicamente por la recogida de desechos fundamentalmente, o generando las condiciones a través de la banca para que incluyera en su plataforma la facilidad de pagarnos o incrementando el tamaño de los empleados que trabajan en el call center de la institución. O sea, hemos hecho todo lo que ha estado en nuestras manos. Pero si nosotros como región, como país, no podemos, una gran ayuda de este tipo de esfuerzos que están haciendo y que yo aplaudo enormemente, es el acompañamiento que podemos tener, hoy hablaba con Brooke de la Embajada Americana, del propio Departamento de Estado, para mejorar nuestro marco legislativo y finalmente otorgarle a los territorios, a los gobiernos locales, una mejor capacidad y autonomía que se necesita para poder entonces nosotros pues tener acceso y promover y desarrollar proyectos de manera directa.
Eduardo, se nos está acabando el tiempo, en 30 segundos, un minuto. Si tú hablas con el ministro de Hacienda de Brasil o de Planeamiento, el sistema de ustedes es muy diferente, pero una o dos ideas, sugerencias que te pidieran a ti como alcalde para poder unlock, para poder tener mucho más capacidad de financiación, ¿qué le dirías al ministro de Hacienda de Brasil?
Você está pedindo uma resposta mágica aqui, mas eu diria que, primeiro, eu acho que é sempre um olhar atento do dono, no caso do Brasil, a gente falaria aqui o dono do botequim, mas o dono da loja, o líder político que venceu, a ter atenção sempre com as finanças públicas. A gente usa uma expressão no Brasil que é um olho no gato, o outro na frigideira, onde está o peixe. Não sei se isso dá para traduzir aqui. Estou com pena de quem está traduzindo. Mas, enfim, esse olhar muito atento para as finanças é muito importante por parte do gestor político, daquele que vence as eleições. E acho que buscar sempre ter planejamento para que o gasto que você faça, ele seja, de fato, mais eficiente, mais efetivo e mais transformador. Isso tem uma relação direta com o olhar do dono, né? Mas quando você tem uma exiguidade de recursos, uma dificuldade de recursos, é fundamental que aquilo que você gastar seja efetivo, que aquela política pública que você implementar, ela chegue no nosso cliente final, que é o cidadão, que são as pessoas que nos colocam como prefeitos, como gestores públicos.
Bueno, yo con ellos dos me podría quedar aquí una hora hablando, pero ya me están diciendo que se nos acabó el tiempo, así que muchas gracias a todos ustedes por su atención y a nuestros dos alcaldes por acompañarnos.
Gracias, Juan Pablo.
Por acá, ¿no?
Please welcome to the stage IDB's Chief of Housing and Urban Development Division, Tatiana Gallego, EBRD's Director for the Infrastructure Euro Team in the Sustainable Infrastructure Group, Susan Goeransson, Mayor Halifax Regional Municipality and Chair of the Big City Mayor Caucus at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Mike Savage, and Paranasidaiji Executive Superintendent, Camila Mileki Escucato, for the Funding Perspectives panel organized by IDB.
Thank you very much. Thank you once again to the Department of State for this invitation. And, I'm really thrilled and excited to take this second panel, to be accompanied by three different organizations which actively work on funding cities in different parts of the region. The first person that we have with us, good afternoon, Sue, is the Director for Infrastructure at the EBRD. And Sue, from the EBRD, manages the Green Cities program, which through action planning, infrastructure investment, and capacity building supports cities in Eastern Europe and North Africa. The EBRD has been working for almost 3 decades directly with cities, financing directly cities in this region. And I wanted to ask you, Sue, what's the secret? Tell me, what financing mechanisms do you have? What preconditions, do you discuss with the cities, considering the challenges that we face? And then, what is your secret for structuring and implementing projects so successfully?
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here. I feel like a bit of a fish out of water coming from Europe, but I'm very honored to be here and to talk about our experience lending to cities. As Tatiana has mentioned, I'm from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. That's also a regional multilateral development bank. We were founded after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and our mandate has always been to support the transition of these countries of operation to a market economy, supporting the development of the private sector, as well as decentralization. As a result of that, working directly with cities has always been very important to us. And for the last 30 years, we've been lending to cities. If I look at what our cumulative lending has been over these 30 years, it's been 4.5 billion euro lending to over 200 cities. And what I'm the most proud of is that we have never lost any money. We have never had a credit payment default on any of these cities outside of war. And given the climate emergency and the need to support cities, I have to say, as a bank, we're not didactic. We lend to cities on a sovereign level. We support PPPs, but what we aim to mostly do is to try to support cities and lend to them directly, lending to cities as well as to municipal companies. And under our Green Cities program, we do this so long as a city is willing to implement a Green City Action Plan. If I look at our current portfolio in the municipal sector, it's 6.8 billion euro today. Of this portfolio, 2 billion euro is for lending directly to cities and municipal companies. And when we lend to cities, we don't just lend to capital cities. Indeed, we have loans under our Green Cities program to Istanbul and to the city of Warsaw, but we also lend to small cities. We've lent to the city of Banja Luka, which could have obtained funding on the sovereign level. But the mayor said to us, it'll take me 3 years, and we have an urgent climate issue. We have a heavily polluting fuel heating plant that we want to convert to biomass. Similarly, we lend to the city of Bałbrzych, a city of under 100,000 people, which needed in Poland, and this city needed to implement urgent energy efficiency measures in its housing. So we can lend to cities all different sizes. But what are some of the takeaways? First of all, size. When we're lending directly to cities, the loans aren't big. If you look at the average size of the loans in our portfolio, it's 12 million euro, slightly more than that. But we couple these loans with grants, capital grants, as well as concessional financing to ensure that the loans remain affordable, but also to increase their impact. The other thing we add to our loans is a lot of technical assistance for capacity building. And some of the things that we focus on are fiscal reforms, corporate governance, creditworthiness enhancement, to ensure that the city is on that road to financial sustainability. And when I look at also what has been successful is developing programs. The Green City program was developed in 2016, but it brings cities together. It enables them to have knowledge sharing and to learn from each other. But I also feel that if I look at our municipal portfolio, we have some countries where we're very successful. And I think why are we more successful in some of these countries? And these are countries where they have clear fiscal rules and clear procedures and fiscal rules on fiscal transfers, on how municipalities can borrow, and also the cities have the ability to generate own revenues. And so then I guess why are we doing this? What is the importance? If you're thinking about it, it's resource intensive, the loans are small, but for a city to borrow, it sends such a powerful signal to the market. It demonstrates that your city is creditworthy. And of course, this can lead to future borrowing, but when you're negotiating contracts with suppliers, if you're looking to enter into public-private partnerships, this sends a very powerful message, and I'm confident it will enable the cities to get better terms. And also, it's a journey, it's a process. I mean, one of the first loans in the 1990s we did was a loan to the city of Bucharest. We had a lot of capacity building to support the city. And 10, 15 years later, the city now has a very successful bond program where it's generally on a regular basis tapping funds from the capital markets to finance its expansion. So I think I've hopefully stayed within my 4-minute limit, but it's been a pleasure to share our experiences with you. Thank you to Tatiana and others.
Thank you, Susan. Mike, I wanted to ask you, you are part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. You're the chair of the caucus cities, mayor cities, sorry. These groups, more than 2,000 cities in Canada, and really provides financial solutions to many mayors. In addition to that, the Canadian government established a new green municipal fund, well stocked, to provide funding and training for transitioning to low carbon projects. Tell us, how does the Federation support its cities with financial solutions, and what is the Green Fund helping you with?
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, and I want to acknowledge I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, a city of about just under 500,000 people on the East Coast. It is also the traditional land of the Mi'kmaq people, who are Indigenous people, and the name they had for our land was the Great Harbor. It is a great harbor, but a harbor also brings challenges from climate. Any mayor in Canada, and there's a bunch of them here, will tell you that in Canada, 60% of the infrastructure is under the control of cities, but we collect 10% of the total tax. Doesn't make any sense. Property tax is a crappy way to fund anything, but it's the system that we have. So we have to go to other orders of government for support. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the big city mayors of Canada have been very effective in working with the federal government in providing support. So the Green Municipal Fund is about 20 years old now. The feds have put about $1.6 billion into that, and it seeds through grants, through loans, through capacity building projects. In my city of Halifax, for example, for more than 10 years, we've had a program called Solar City, where we can help people finance solar panels on their roof and pay for it over time on their property tax bills. That's the kind of thing that we need. We have a very ambitious climate plan in my city of Halifax. It's called Halifact. I encourage you to look it up. But the cost that we have identified that we need to spend on it is about $1 billion. Our entire operating budget is $1 billion. So we simply can't do it alone. We need to work with other orders of government, the private sector, and NGOs. And the Green Municipal Fund, we think, is a great example. Cities are the climate leaders of the world, in my view. Support cities, get money directly to cities, and cities will invest it, and they've shown that they can make a difference. I think the Green Municipal Fund is a really good example of that in Canada.
Thank you, Mike. And now we've gone from a multilateral development bank. We've heard about, work at national level, in support of, cities across the country. We are going to talk to Camila now, on how a state, in this particular case, the state of Paraná, is helping, small and medium cities across the entire, territory advance, with the urban development agenda. Camila, Paraná Cidade is actually, it's a real international reference of how a state took leadership to support through a well-structured program of financing and capacity building, equitably the access to finance to all these cities. Paraná Cidade, again, has been alive for 20 years, has had great successes. And I wanted to hear from you, a little bit about, how it's structured on the one hand, but also what advantages does the program bring to the cities in the state, which is really making the difference.
$2 bilhões investidos em todos os municípios do estado do Paraná, nesses 25 anos do Paraná Cidade. Mas antes de contar um pouquinho desta ação de financiar os governos locais, continuadamente, e sempre em inovação, com o objetivo de promover o desenvolvimento urbano, sustentável, igualitário e inclusivo, quero agradecer em nome do governador do estado do Paraná, que fica no sul do Brasil, Carlos Massa Ratinho Júnior, e do secretário das cidades do estado do Paraná, Eduardo Pimentel, o convite e a oportunidade que o BID, parceiro nosso desde sempre, em compartilharmos nossa exitosa experiência. Hoje, quem exerce o financiamento iniciado pelo Paraná Cidade, em função de uma legislação brasileira, é o que chamamos de Sistema de Financiamento de Ações, formado pela Secretaria das Cidades, o Paraná Cidade, que é o agente técnico, e a Fomento Paraná, que é o agente financeiro. O sistema de financiamento é, na prática, um fundo rotativo que tem garantido o reembolso do valor emprestado para ser reemprestado. Com relação às vantagens que o Paraná Cidade oferece aos seus parceiros, os municípios, destacamos o apoio, o acompanhamento e a orientação técnica e legal ao atendimento aos critérios técnicos, econômicos e financeiros, desde a elaboração dos projetos de obras e ações institucionais, na licitação para a contratação do fornecedor da ação e na supervisão da execução até a sua conclusão. Essas vantagens garantem aos gestores locais a aplicação do financiamento, com segurança e a certeza da aprovação junto aos órgãos de controle. Já quanto ao papel estratégico, junto ao governo, e como diz nosso governador, levar felicidade aos cidadãos de todas as cidades do estado do Paraná, com ruas pavimentadas, espaços culturais de lazer, de saúde, de educação, de infraestrutura para a promoção do desenvolvimento econômico, de convívio com a natureza ou para a prática de esportes, e outros tantos projetos. Com relação aos avanços dos projetos locais, em especial, oferecendo instrumentos de planejamento urbano, como um sistema cartográfico georreferenciado, de acesso livre aos gestores municipais, a troca de documentação com os governos locais, totalmente digitalizada, e a exigência que todos os municípios do estado do Paraná possuam seus planos diretores municipais. Essas ações de apoio aos governos locais e no desenvolvimento urbano regional têm o objetivo de promover a cidade para todos, como prevê a nova agenda urbana, aliados à promoção dos Objetivos de Desenvolvimento Sustentável da Agenda 2030. E, finalizando, desde já, colocamos o Paraná Cidade à disposição do BID, esta nova iniciativa junto às cidades das Américas, para oferecer as nossas experiências conjuntas e nossos instrumentos de planejamento urbano, inovando e agilizando nos processos, pois para as gerações futuras. Obrigada.
Gracias, Camila.
Estamos ya, sorry. Back to English. We're closing, but I just wanted to ask each of the panelists in 10 seconds, 20 seconds, what would be your recommendation for a mayor, your one recommendation for a mayor that comes to you, in asking for help or for support?
I would say for your first project, make sure it's well prepared. Think of something that could move quickly, because if you see results, I think when you're borrowing money, you want to see results, and I think that brings success.
Thanks. Mike.
I would say we all share the planet. The parts of the city don't belong to the city or to the province or the state or the federal government. It belongs to the citizens. And if we're going to safeguard the future of our cities, we need to climate-proof them, and we have to do it together.
Thank you. Camila.
Nós acreditamos que esse apoio técnico, técnico, jurídico, legal, é necessário. Visto no Paraná são 399 municípios, 80% é a população abaixo de 20 mil habitantes. Então, todo esse suporte que é dado é muito importante. E é só assim que a gente atinge lá na ponta, a trazer o investimento para as pessoas que estão naquela cidade.
Wonderful. Well, thanks to you, our three panelists for today. We hope we give you a small flavor for, what different financial options and different funds and, institutional, structures have managed to do in different countries, and, that this can, help us progress in, ensuring access to finance, for cities in the region. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage President of the United States Export-Import Bank, Rita Jo Lewis.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes to speak with you today. To be able to see so many mayors from across the Americas and the Caribbean, so many business owners and colleagues in our USG, it's an honor to be here today. And we really want to just thank especially IDB for hosting this engaging conversation, where I think one of the key takeaways is crystal clear that there may be no greater impact than the advocacy and determination of local elected officials and leaders who inspire and pioneer positive change and innovation in communities across our world. So I want to say thank you to the work that you're doing each and every day. And as I heard the mayor from Santo Domingo and Mayor Paes, who I haven't seen since he built those stadiums and those housings and those community centers in Brazil, I think he gave me a great setup. In the sense, I think both of them did. Because as the president and chair of the Exim Bank of the United States, we began to definitely recognize how important cities are as the engines of economic growth, innovation, and prosperity. And as leaders, we know that you are the economic drivers of that innovation and growth. So it's almost important to be able to say, well, why are we here at this juncture as the Export-Import Bank? We work on very large infrastructure projects with your sovereigns, with U.S. exporters, with foreign buyers who are looking to purchase America's goods and services. So as you heard the mayor talk about sustainability, those are the kinds of issues that we want to see cities work on each and every day. And we want to be in the network with each of you to talk about the tools and the resources that we can provide in a great collaboration so that we can work with all of your cities. One of the things that is so important to understand is that it is not just our at the U.S.'s Export Credit Agency. We work alongside your export credit agencies in the Americas. And so for U.S. EXIM, we offer a wide range of financing solutions to empower companies, U.S. companies and foreign buyers who need affordable and accessible credit to fund the big projects that you all are talking about here today. And whether it is infrastructure development or renewable energy initiatives, we are providing financing on these large types of projects. So the Export-Import Bank, one of the things that we have said is not only are we back in business, but we're committed to being a game changer for the companies that are represented here and the foreign buyers who are also represented here who want to purchase America's goods and services from our companies. You know, one of the things that I am most proud of is that last year, our board approved what we call a Make More in America initiative to create some new financing opportunities to spur manufacturing in the United States, to support American jobs, and boost America's ability to outcompete anyone. You know, that particular financing tool is for U.S. businesses and America's businesses who are looking to build out capacity to manufacture exports. And so in areas like environmentally beneficial and renewable energy projects, large infrastructure projects, those that require the types of services and products that American companies provide is the work that EXIM wants to continue to do. So we're truly excited to be able to be here because we know that working alongside your export credit agencies, we can all offer tailored financing tools, everything from loans and guarantees and insurance, so that there can be financing options that come at a competitive interest rate, with flexible repayment terms and favorable conditions to make it easier for businesses to access the capital that so many of you have been talking about on the stage. So we stand ready as an export credit agency to support not only our U.S. companies, but companies in the Americas in their efforts to access credit at competitive rates, and also to be able to compete, but not only to compete, but also to win in this new marketplace. So we are excited about being here, and we are seeking all of you to continue to work not only with us, but also the private sector, because we all know that one government agency, one private company, one administration cannot do it alone. We seek support from the private sector, and we seek support from each of you. So we look forward to helping in any way that we possibly can to drive 21st century change, create resilience and prosper, and to create more prosperous cities. Therefore, doing one important thing that each of you talk about every day, and that is improving the lives across all of our communities, especially here in the U.S. and across the Americas and in the Caribbean. Thank you for giving us a minute. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage for a fireside chat with Managing Partner of the U.S. Mayoral Roundtable, George Burciaga, and Mayor of Tijuana, Montserrat Caballero.
Hey there, good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing tonight? I need more energy here. How are you doing tonight? All right. The reason why I say that is because right now I'm wishing I was a little taller with this podium here, but I'm so glad that you're here. So first, let me just introduce myself. I'm George Burciaga with the U.S. Mayor Roundtable. I'm glad you're here to participate in the U.S. Mayor Roundtable. We have incredible mayors here, including Mayor Caballero from Tijuana, Mexico as well. I just wanted to say that with the challenges that we've faced in 2022, it's caused us to think different. It's caused us to rethink and challenge everyone and how our cities will be innovative and how we'll move forward. In order for our cities to really rethink moving forward, a new path, a new way forward has to be developed. The mayors at the table today will talk about transportation, homelessness, broadband, and really set the tone for what's possible. I want to send a big shout out because while we're talking about what's possible, there are a lot of companies that came here today to really set the tone for that change. You have companies like Comtech, companies like Verso Ultima Digital, Mesh++, Beam, and so many others that came here to really help our cities move forward. And also, I want to make sure that I say thank you to Mayor Hancock, who is the host of this conference, and with the U.S. Mayor Roundtable has been instrumental in creating the change that's required for us to, again, move forward. I want to say thank you to the State Department. There's so many incredible individuals there like Maria and Ari and Alex that made this possible. Thank you to them. And without further ado, I want to introduce Mayor Caballero from the city of Tijuana of Mexico.
Hello to everyone. I'm going to speak in Spanish because I'm representing the minorities in my country. Muy buenas tardes. Muchas gracias. Quiero saludar a quienes nos acompañan en este foro tan importante para nuestras ciudades y, por supuesto, para nuestros países. Antes de comenzar, me gustaría mucho dedicar este mensaje desde aquí, de Denver, Colorado, a las mujeres y hombres y a las familias que viven en situación de calle, personas como ustedes y como nosotros, que fueron y son víctimas de la pobreza, de la falta de oportunidades, de la exclusión social y, por supuesto, de la discriminación. Si algo me enseñó la vida y mi madre es que para conquistar tus sueños y salir adelante tienes que luchar con todas tus fuerzas y nunca perder la esperanza. Pero ¿qué pasa si no tienes una madre que te impulse o una familia que te apoye? Bueno, es ahí donde hablamos que tiene que entrar el gobierno, hacer esa red de apoyo para las personas en situación de calle. Por eso es importante señalar que como gobiernos no podemos ignorar esta realidad. Y les voy a contar una pequeña anécdota. Conocí, cuando empezaba como presidenta municipal de Tijuana, a gente en situación de calle, como lo tiene Denver, como lo tiene Los Ángeles y como los tiene San Diego. En este andar y conocimiento de personajes, conocí a Carlos. Carlos vive en la calle y tiene una situación de adicciones. Yo hablé con Carlos y le decía que al ser tan difícil el cruce a Estados Unidos, podíamos patrocinarle su regreso a su ciudad, pagarle su boleto de avión. Sin embargo, Carlos me dijo que él salió de Veracruz con muchas expectativas y salió de Veracruz y una vez que llegó a Tijuana, el bordo con San Diego, el muro fronterizo, se vio con la tragedia de que era difícil o imposible cruzar. Entonces, al estar ahí en la desolación, sin nadie que te apoye, sin nadie que te aguarde, Carlos tomó las drogas. Y una vez que se hizo adicto a las drogas, Carlos decidió no regresar a su lugar de origen, puesto que él había prometido a su esposa y a sus hijos una mejor calidad de vida. Y al convertirse ahora en desempleado, en adicto, no podía regresar con su dignidad rota. Por eso aquí me detengo y es donde hago un pensamiento de cómo ayudar a nuestras personas en situación de calle. Entonces, creamos un programa que se llama Integrando Vidas, que brinda atención permanente en situación de calle para ayudarles a superar sus adicciones y mejorar su calidad de vida. En este programa, como alcaldesa y como gobierno transparente, ofrecemos la oportunidad de cambiar sus vidas. Este programa es incluyente y lo trabajamos en conjunto con un sistema municipal contra las adicciones, donde se ofrece atención médica, psicológica, con terapia ocupacional y talleres para aprender habilidades que les permitan a gente como Carlos integrarse nuevamente a la sociedad. Con estas acciones buscamos fomentar la inclusión y la empatía hacia las personas en situación de calle, pero sobre todo hablamos de derechos humanos y de dignidad. Hoy por hoy, Carlos se ha rehabilitado y con él 100 personas más en un año. En un año hemos sacado a 100 personas completamente rehabilitadas que se encontraban en situación de calle, pasando temas de adicciones. Así que esta es una gran oportunidad que tenemos todas y todos los que estamos aquí para fortalecer con nuestras acciones de gobierno estrategias necesarias para conseguir juntos el inicio de más y mejores programas que rescaten a las familias que están en situación de calle. Quiero pedirles que nadie se quede atrás, ya es hora de crear todos juntos ciudades con crecimiento y desarrollo sostenible. Muchísimas gracias. Gracias.
Now the roundtable will begin. We actually will have our mayors come out. We have some of the greatest mayors here today from the best cities in the world. From Denver to Atlanta to Kingston to Tacoma. I'm excited for this roundtable to begin. Mayors, you're here. Our host, Mayor Hancock. He's like Oprah. All right, let's sit down. Follow you.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
All the way. Why don't you come here?
Okay.
I'll get on the end. Well, good afternoon. We having a good time? Y'all ready for a good conversation? I'm so glad you're here. We have been doing these mayoral roundtables that are broadcast, streamed globally I've been doing it now for a year, but I've been participating for a couple years as a mayor who has come to sit down and have good conversation. And today, we've got 3 phenomenal mayors that I all know. We're going to have you meet them in just a moment. And of course, the leader of Ignite Cities, George Burciaga, who brings us all together. Before we get started, we want to thank a couple people. We want to thank George Burciaga and the U.S. Mayoral Roundtable for their continued work in government and bringing technology, innovative solutions to government. We want to thank Mayor Ramirez from Tijuana. Wasn't she phenomenal?
Yes.
She brings great energy. Thank her for kicking us off today in Spanish. We want to again thank the State Department and everyone responsible for putting this amazing event together. And of course, I always want to thank my team because we are here because these folks picked up the mantle and said we're going to get this done and we're going to welcome people from around the Western Hemisphere. And of course, all the city leaders who are here with us, who've traveled far and near to be a part of this. Thank you for your leadership around the globe. Today, we're going to focus on building our future cities and have some thoughtful discussion. The topic today is connecting every family, focusing on homelessness, transportation, and broadband. So as we kick off this session, I'm going to ask the mayors to take just 1 minute or less, which is a challenge for mayors. Tell us who you are, the city you represent, and a little bit about yourself.
There you go.
Mayor Woodard, why don't you start?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and what an honor it is just to be here today. So I want to thank both you and George and everyone who's helped put this together to bring us all together. And as I said in the panel earlier, there's nothing better than being on stage with other mayors who do this kind of work every day, but I'm honored to be here. I'm Victoria Woodard's mayor of Tacoma, Washington. 220,000 residents. Seattle is 30 miles north of us. And as I like to say, if I'm the one talking, no offense to anybody else, but I happen to think that Tacoma is the greatest city in the universe. But that's just my personal opinion. Have been mayor, I'm in my 6th year as mayor, spent 7 years before that on the city council, 5 years before that as a parks commissioner in Tacoma. Our parks are elected, and I'm a hometown girl, not born in Tacoma, but raised. It's the only place I know to call home. And I would say I got my passion for this work much like you, Mayor Hancock, both being former Urban League CEOs, but had an opportunity to work for the Urban League where I really began to understand the importance of what policy does to a community and realize that if you have a gift, you have the ability to be at a table where others aren't. You have an obligation to sit at that table and represent those who don't have a voice, and that's why I love doing this work.
Well said. Thank you, Mayor Woodard. All the way from Jamaica, make some noise for Mayor Delroy Williams. Welcome, sir. We're so glad you're here.
I'm Delroy Williams. I'm mayor of Kingston. Kingston has a population of approximately 700,000 people. City sees about 1 million people on a daily basis. It's the capital of sprint. They produce some of the finest track athletes from 100 to 400 meters, and some of the best musicians, including Bob Marley and others. So,
Mayor Williams, we're glad you're here. Thank you for being here. And our brother from the great big A city, the busiest airport in the world. Let's welcome the Atlanta Mayor, the Honorable Andre Dickens.
Thank you, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you all for this opportunity to share some time. My name is Andre Dickens, the mayor of Atlanta. I'm a homeboy, born and raised in the city of Atlanta, and I was on the city council for 8 years as a city council person at large, representing the entire city, and then became mayor just last year. So I've been mayor for 16 months, and you know, I love Atlanta. We have the world's busiest airport, as stated. We are #1 in the nation for TV and film production. I know you thought it was New York. I know you thought it was LA. Nope, it is Atlanta. And just as Kingston has the great Bob Marley and great music of reggae, we have hip hop. All things hip hop comes out of Atlanta. You know, I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. We've had some great conversations. I consider these mayors, you know, colleagues, friends, and even mentors, and as we have, you know, grown together in this. And I've known that I wanted to be mayor since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
I love cities. I've been to almost 30 countries and on 6 continents. So I love to, and everybody that's been on this stage, every country that's been on this stage thus far, I've been to. So I love what you guys are doing in this global space. So let's continue to do it together.
Thank you for being here, Mayor Dickens. George, are we ready to jump into this thing?
Ready to jump in. I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
When I look at this group and I look at you, I just see family. And I'm so proud of what you've done as mayors across the country, inspiring the world to really think differently. And I'm filled with gratitude. So I just want to say thank you for that.
You bet. So let me ask a question to see how far and wide this challenge is. Raise your hand as a public official if in your city you are dealing with the challenges of people experiencing homelessness. Look at that, okay. And so these are people from all over the Western Hemisphere. Mayor Woodard, you are not only mayor of Tacoma, Washington, but you lead a national organization, a National League of Cities that all of us are members of.
Absolutely.
And we come together on a regular basis in conferences like this, and we talk about the top emerging issues of the day. One issue that has remained pretty constant is people experiencing homelessness.
Absolutely.
I wonder if you can just talk about the complexity of this issue and how partnerships between community organizations, nonprofits, government, private sector, have to come together to address it, and what have you seen in Tacoma?
Great, well, thank you for the question, and thank you for, as I was finishing up, I said, oh, I forgot to say I'm the president of the National League of Cities.
Got you.
But you got me.
Madam President.
Yeah, you know, thank you. Now see, that was them making a lot of noise to say, let me know that they were in the room, because I said if they weren't, I was going to call them out from the stage. So I do want to acknowledge, though, Clarence Anthony, our CEO, and Vince Williams, our immediate past president, who were here today. So I want to show them a little bit of love. But you know, this is an issue that I think some people, in some instances, would rather not talk about. And I think for so long, it wasn't a conversation we wanted to have. But I think if people didn't see it before the pandemic, certainly now, I don't know any major American city that you could drive through and not see some evidence of those who are homeless. Maybe not in the downtown, but you drive around long enough, you're going to see what's happening in a community. And so Tacoma is not unlike any one of those communities, still experience the same thing. So we've approached it from several different ways. You know, we started out believing that shelter, I'm going to go upstream in a minute to talk about affordable housing, because I think that's how you end homelessness.
All right.
But as we're talking just about the issue of street homelessness, we started with shelter, right? How can we find shelter for everyone. Congregate shelters been the focus of most cities. And so we started up that path, and that was helpful. But then, this whole idea of tiny homes came out, and Tacoma actually was the first city in the country to work with pallet shelters. And so we started with, we declared a state of emergency around homelessness in the city of Tacoma, and we opened up what we call our stability site, which was kind of a tent, initially a tent in a tent. It was a huge tent with 10 by 10 spaces within the tent. And then we did pallet shelters outside, because we also know that, people who are homeless, those are our community members. Those are our neighbors. And they face a lot of issues, just like all of us who were housed face a lot of issues, right? And so some of the issues about not being able to be indoors. So that's when we started working with pallet shelters, and they're providing all of our shelters at our stability site. So that's how we kind of started, and we saw great success there. But what we saw is then the issue continued to grow and grow. And that site was about a little bit less than 100 people that we could see. Now we have over 2,000 shelter beds in our community, and we still don't have everyone sheltered. So one of the things that we did lately that I think has been really important for me, and that is making sure that we have the kind of shelter we need for everyone who's experiencing homelessness. In a lot of our congregate shelters with our partners, right? When you come in, you can't do drugs, you can't drink. I mean, they're all, if you have mental health problems, you get kicked out.
Barriers to entry.
Exactly, and so what we did is we did a low barrier shelter where you can bring all of your stuff from your tent, and you can bring it right to a same place and be with all your stuff, with all the people that you call your community, and be in that low barrier shelter. So that's what we've kind of done in Tacoma to address the issue, just opened up safe parking. But how we solve the issue of homelessness is not shelter. How we solve the issue of homelessness is affordable housing. And that's why, as president of the National League of Cities, I picked two issues that we were going to focus on this year. That was workforce and affordable housing. And the theme this year is people plus partnerships equals possibilities. Recognizing that none of us, no government, I said this in a session earlier, no government entity can solve any of the issues our cities are facing alone.
Yeah.
So this thing is about partnerships, and so we've got a housing accelerator that we're moving forward in partnership with the American Planning Association, and we're going upstream to make sure that cities know how to provide affordable housing for their residents. I know a lot of communities, much like yours, used ARPA dollars to fund some affordable housing projects, and we've got other examples of how that's happened. But what we've really got to do when we talk about partnerships is we've got to bring everyone to the table. Everybody's got to be a part of the conversation, whether you're a builder, or I should say a builder developer, whether you finance it, whether you're a realtor. So that's what the Housing Accelerator is doing. We're bringing everyone together to the table. Some folks in some communities you don't even talk to. They're your enemies, right? But we're bringing everybody to the table to say, let's remove all of the barriers that we have with each other, and let's try to solve the issue holistically. So let's go upstream so that we can get everyone housed, and then we won't have to deal with the issue of homelessness.
I love that. Mayor Dickens, let's stay on the theme of affordable housing for a moment. You have really worked to figure out how to bring technology and housing together so that you can be effective in Atlanta addressing the challenges of people experiencing homelessness. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as you saw with the show of hands, a lot of people are dealing with the challenges of affordable housing, of homelessness. People that are experiencing homelessness is on the rise because of the rising cost of materials that came about during COVID and even before COVID, and labor costs. So the cost to construct a single unit of housing has risen across the nation and certainly across the planet. And so what has happened is, the cost of living has just gone up, and people's salaries haven't kept up with the cost increases of rent and mortgage. And so you end up having people with more month than money. Essentially, they end up having the inability to make all their bills. And Atlanta is really, it used to be a very affordable place. People would move there and say, you can get a big house in Atlanta, you can live in Atlanta, but the challenge is we've become a victim of our own success. as we've received more and more companies coming to Atlanta, having their headquarters there, having their innovation centers, having their technology hubs and regional hubs be in Atlanta, as we have more and more conventions and business growth, we have an increase in the cost of living. And so the challenge is, how do you help people be able to live in Atlanta? So I set a goal of building or preserving 20,000 units of affordable housing. And while our goal is big, it still won't meet all of the challenges, but we're still gonna tackle this challenge over the next 7.5 years, is to build or preserve 20,000 units. And we're building them with public-private partnerships. We're building some with nonprofit developers, with corporations, with various other entities, and we're getting it done. The very first year of my administration, we built close to 2,000 units of housing, and about 4,000 other units are under construction in some form. And so to build units and to preserve units is the goal, because we know that there are some housing units that are, getting out of, getting dilapidated or becoming old, and so we want to make investments in those. The last thing I'll say on top of that is to make sure that we're taking, because of the way people are going to work now, we have to do office to residential conversions. I don't know about your downtown, but everybody hasn't returned back to work the same way, because we're now working virtually. Buildings are now 75% occupied instead of 100% occupied. Everybody isn't coming back, they're downsizing. So what we're doing now is we actually bought one of the largest buildings downtown because it was only, they said they weren't ever returning back in that way. So we bought it. My administration bought it, and now we're converting that building into about 700 units of housing, which about 500 of those units would be at various levels of affordability. We believe in mixed income, where the school principal, head of school, the teacher, and the janitor can live in the same community and have the same amenities and have a great quality of housing. And so we're doing that, and we're trying to get rid of bad landlords. There are some bad landlords out there that don't like to take care of providing safe, quality, decent housing. We're coming at them and saying, hey, we will help you exit or help you do better. And so I think that the last thing I'll say with the technology piece is, it doesn't do us any good to just keep people in affordable housing for the next 100 years, though. The goal is to get them into workforce development, as Mayor Wooders was talking about, is to train you in a skill that you can then graduate out of affordable housing. So maybe you go in there as 27 years old, a single mother, but we're gonna get you a skill in nursing, in technology, we're gonna get you a skill in truck driving or something, technology, and then you can graduate your way out of that so you can be a homeowner in 7-10 years versus the rest of your life being in affordable housing. So the goal, guys, is to always pair workforce development with affordable housing. You just don't put people in affordable housing and then say, you figure it out and you be on the government's dollar. No, we want to train you to get a great $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 job real soon.
So what we're hearing is, Mayor Williams, that this is a complex issue that takes a lot of different, takes on a lot of different facets that you have to bring to solve it. Now, I was looking at the audience when I asked people to raise their hand if they had a challenge with homelessness in their city. Does Jamaica? And if you do, are you having to take a broad, comprehensive approach as well?
Yeah, we have approximately 2,000, based on last estimates, homeless persons in Jamaica. But over 50% of those are in Kingston. We do have shelters. We have just completed the construction of a new facility that provides residence for homeless persons. We are expanding that. We have completed the procurement process for a second phase of that to provide an additional 50 or so rooms for persons who just don't have anywhere to go. But we call it a transitional center because it's to the point. We have to transition homeless persons back into the workforce, and into normal family life. We have started a program at the municipality where we have started to employ homeless persons. So we have looked at them, we have put them in categories based on skill set and so forth, and we have employed a number of them right now as environmental wardens in the city. And they are doing a wonderful job in the city. We have also engaged private companies to look into, to expand the program of employing them so that private companies can now begin to consider them for employment. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is affordable housing. And we have been building a lot of affordable housing in Jamaica, but we also have a program that we refer to as indigent homes. And those come at no cost to the recipients. Of course, each year the budget for that is increasing, which is a good sign because more and more government is constructing far more indigent housing that would help to, in a way, to stem homelessness, the rate of increase in homelessness. And so that's another program. We do feed about 800 homeless persons twice per day in Kingston. So we have 2 meals per day, 800 meals twice per day. So they do come to the municipality for meals in the morning and in the afternoon. And we also do provide clothing for them. The last thing I would want to say on the issue of homelessness is we do expect cities to grow, and we do expect the urbanization to continue. The fear is, and what we have to contemplate, and what I as mayor and the team there contemplating is you're anticipating, if cities are growing, then you're anticipating that the number of homeless persons will grow or might grow, or the rate might increase. And so it's how to come up with a plan that will not see an increase in the rate of homelessness as a result of gentrification in cities. So that's something that I leave for contemplation.
I appreciate that. Mayor Woodard, you mentioned in your context, and as did Mayor Dickens, the concept of workforce development. Yes. So I'm going to quickly ask you all just to briefly talk about what are we not doing, or what can we do better in America? Because I agree with you, it's part of this very complex formula. Workforce development, giving people the skills to take care of themselves for their lifetime is extremely important. It is. It is. So being an urban leaguer, I know this is your passion.
Absolutely it is. And again, as I named it, those are the two things that I put up this year as my focus for the National League of Cities. And so, again, another opportunity. We've entered into a partnership with the Department of Labor. And we're going to go through this process together, but we're going to take a cohort of at least 12 cities. And I could hear DOL saying, the U.S. Department of Labor. Let me certainly put that out there. But we're going to take a group of cities through this cohort model to focus on workforce. We know that there are billions of dollars flowing to cities through the Infrastructure Act that's coming forward. But we're getting this money to address infrastructure in our communities, but we don't have the workforce. Right. So we've got to focus on how we move people and skill people up to get those good jobs, so that they can then actually begin to take care of themselves. And while it may not necessarily be an affordable issue, I think even going back to homelessness and affordability just really quickly, even in our community, teachers, police officers, even people who have good jobs can't afford. So I think we also have to really redefine what affordability is. It isn't just for people who are poor or who make a minimum wage. Somebody who has a really good job still can't afford to buy a house in my community. Right. So, but I think we've got to give people the opportunities to be able to skill up so they can take those jobs. And so with this cohort, being able to get this technical assistance from the Department of Labor and hopefully access to funding, I know in my community right now, with our Workforce Development Office, we are already working with local skills trades to get people, and we're really focusing on like the 18 to 24-year-olds. So the kid who maybe dropped out of high school or maybe just got their high school diploma, and trying to skill them up so they don't fall into that same path that their families may have fallen into.
I appreciate that. Either one of the mayors, Williams or Dickens, like to add to the workforce question?
Yeah, but the government of Jamaica has introduced a policy just recently where for vocational institutions that they are free, it's free of cost up to a certain level. So you're encouraging training for your young people. Yeah. But the vulnerable groups, for example, homeless persons, they are there. We know them. I can identify them. And a certain number of them are trainable. and they're easy to target, easy to get into a program. So the funding, we believe that just make the funding available to provide the training for them. The fact that government has now made it easy for them to access training in skill set institutions, then that's a good step for us. So now it's for the municipality to get them into those institutions and begin to train them.
I'll be brief. I wanted to just say that the biggest thing that I've learned as a city council person and then now coming into mayor is that your training has to be in fields that are in demand.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to go through a 4-month, 6-month training program. You told them there was a job and there's no job.
Right.
You've dedicated this time, they've gone to work to train, and then there's no job. So I always like to have demand-based training.
Yep.
Ask the corporations, you're a Metro Chamber of Commerce, ask those people, what are you going to be hiring 6 months from now? What are you going to be hiring 8 months from now or 5 months from now? How many of people do you need for this occupation? And then you go out there and say, we will train to that. So employer-led training. It makes no sense to just train people just to be training and then they come out there and still don't have a job. You've wasted state or government resources and they waste precious time. So upskilling and reskilling is important. There are individuals that maybe were good at a certain skill, but life has affected them in a certain way, so now they need to get reskilled in electrical or in technology or in nursing or what have you. So reskilling and then upskilling. Their skills are obsolete. They got trained 20 years ago to do something. We don't do it like that anymore. And so now you're no longer as relevant on your resume. So that's when we upskill them. And so very targeted skill training for skills that people need for work.
Absolutely, 150% agree with you.
Can I jump back in for 1 second? Because this reminded me of something very quickly that we're doing in Tacoma. One of the things that's really important when you talk about upskilling someone who's working a job or a dead-end job that's not going to take them anywhere is their ability to be able to get into the program, to be able to take the time to be in a program. So something we did with our ARPA dollars is we did the earn and learn model. So people could come and get trained like we did it in healthcare, because that's obviously, all of us know that our healthcare workers took a beating during COVID, and we saw the deficit. So for healthcare workers, what we did is we said, okay, you know what? If you want to quit that job for a period of time, we're going to pay you to get trained.
Yeah.
And so we're on our third cohort now of taking people through the training. At the end, they're getting connected to that job. They wouldn't have been able to take the training if they had to work 3 jobs and then try to fit in the training. So we paid them for their time. I have a story about a young mother who went through the training. She was pregnant, had her baby during the training. The training was so convenient for her that she was able to come back, pick it up, graduated. She's working as a nurse now.
Yeah.
So that's another piece of it.
That's good stuff. Hey, listen, we got just about 9 minutes left, so I'm going to do a rapid kind of a question for you all. And I want to transition to transportation and technologies. And then I'm going to ask you just do 30-second answers, so think hard about your answers. George, let's start with you, because your team is working around the country working with mayors to bring innovative technologies. Tell us what some of the leading technologies and areas that mayors are focusing on.
Yeah, so Mayor, thank you for that question. Yeah, we walk outside and we see these incredible smart poles that are actually doing this for you. I'm going to paint a quick verbal visual for you. If I hear a gunshot, the light should get brighter. This display should tell you there's been an alert. The bus should stop moving in that direction. Police should be dispatched. The cameras should turn on. And the light should follow that sound of an issue, of the issue happening. While we think that sounds way in the future, it's not. It's here. There's companies like Comtech and Verso and others that are here right now working across the country to deliver these products, and some of them right out of Denver.
Yeah.
Denver companies, really working to change the way cities operate. So there are companies here, but then I have, as you know, the great fortune of working with so many other companies around the world, with so many great mayors, to really rethink how we fund those projects. These PPPs, to really rethink the delivery of a private-public partnership to share the cost, liability, and risk to deliver what's possible moving forward, and that's real. So I'm really excited about what the future holds for our cities, but it's really because mayors like here today are really inspiring the change to actually take advantage of it. So that's some of the stuff that
we got to become smarter as cities, right?
There you go.
Work smarter, not harder.
There you go.
Mayor Dickens, all of us in this room and cities all over the world have reducing carbon footprint goals and increasing our sustainability, particularly through transportation. Share some of the initiatives that the City of Atlanta have implemented to do that.
Yeah, I think, we're trying to build not only cities for today's infrastructure, but cities for tomorrow, the future. And that means, having a future and preserving the environment and making sure that we are aware of living a cleaner life and reducing our carbon footprint. In Atlanta, the second largest source of emissions is transportation. So the second largest source of emissions are our cars, our people getting around on buses or things of that nature. So what we've decided is that we want to reduce that contributor to the footprint. So our Office of Resilience and Sustainability is working with our Atlanta Department of Transportation, which is to make sure that we increase the number of bike facilities, bike lanes, protected bike lanes, to make sure that people can get out of cars and get in bicycles, but also our rapid transit to make sure that we get more people onto our it's called MARTA, our bus and rail system. But also, MARTA is, going to electric buses, and so are our school buses. We got a federal grant to make sure that our kids are not on these buses that I was on, which was those diesel buses, but now they're electric buses, so those kids won't inhale those fumes, but also we reduce the carbon footprint. And so the goal is to get more electrification, to have more EV charging stations, and we've applied for a big grant with the federal government called Charging Fueling Infrastructure Across America. Put in a good word for the City of Atlanta so we can get that grant. But it'll help us increase the EV charging stations across the city and encourage more people to have electric vehicles. As mayor, I now have an electric vehicle for my administrations, to get me around the city of Atlanta. And so constantly trying to find ways for us to reduce our carbon footprint. Our goal in the city is by 2035 that we will be 100% clean energy. And so we're about 40% there, so we got to keep going.
That's good stuff. It's hard to answer that question in 30 seconds, so I'm going to give you some love on that one. That's a tough one.
Thank you.
Mayor Williams, one of the things that we all found out during COVID, particularly here in the United States, is how embarrassingly lacking we are with regards to broadband, access to broadband and the internet. Many kids, families were left without the ability to connect or do homework. Can you talk, and by the way, we believe this can hinder health, it can hinder economic growth, it can hinder educational opportunities. How are you addressing this issue? Do you see this at home?
Yes.
In your city, and how are you all addressing it?
And it was very clear during the pandemic when children were out of school. There were children who couldn't afford tablets or devices, and there are children who didn't have access to the internet. So the government has been very aggressive on it. We have issued nearly 100,000 devices to children, and vulnerable children, children in what we classify as poor families. We have also issued over 30,000 devices to parents in order to help. We have also issued to teachers. The government has been expanding its internet access and broadband services across Jamaica. We have public Wi-Fi's across communities. We have over 252 hotspots across communities in Jamaica, and we have also connected schools, over 300 schools, high bandwidth usage schools to the government's one. We have another arrangement for over 700 schools. So the government has been very, very aggressive. The government is pursuing a aggressive economic policy, and complementing that policy has to be internet access, broadband technology, digitization. So the government has been very aggressive. I would say generally as a mayor, I'm quite pleased with the state of Kingston with respect to broadband technology and internet access, and it's getting better. But as mayor, I'm pleased with the approach.
Mayor Woodard, you get to bring us home on this issue. Broadband infrastructure is expensive. How are you all financing it, in Tacoma, and what type of partnerships have you had to build?
Well, you know, as I said, people plus partnerships equals possibility, so we can't do anything without others. So in Tacoma, we are, I would say, extremely fortunate because partnership is not just what we say, it's how we work together. And so in addition to owning our own broadband service in Tacoma, that is actually run by an outside entity that we have a partnership with, but we have great partnerships with Verizon and with Comcast as we think about delivering those services into our community. So as a former Urban League CEO, had the opportunity when Comcast first did its rollout of $9.95 internet access, right? And so we're taking that in the communities, but as we all know here in America, the $30 payback that you get from the federal government is now happening, right? And so it's really nice to see that our federal government has stepped up and said, we recognize cities can't do this alone. We learned it in the pandemic. And so this opportunity and how we're looking at it in Tacoma, as opposed to trying to put it on TV or trying to get the information out for people to apply so that they can get that credit and have free internet, we're going door to door.
Wow.
So we're taking trusted messengers who are going door to door in some of our communities that need it the most and are saying, listen, this service can be provided for you and it's free. The other thing we're partnering with is it's great to have access to the internet, but if you don't have a device other than a phone, what good is that internet?
Exactly.
Have you ever tried to fill out a job application or check your kid's grades or have a kid do a homework assignment on a phone? That doesn't work.
Right.
So it's not just about internet, but it's the ability to have low-cost tools.
Right.
And so we're partnering with others, again, like Verizon and Comcast in our community to make sure that we're not only delivering internet, but we're actually delivering the product so that families can actually access the internet that they're getting.
Yeah, this is a big eye-opener for all of us during COVID about the situation. So I'm glad all of you are working on it, and it sounds like the progress has been made. George, we're about ready done. Last word?
I just want to thank everyone at the round table. Thank you for everything you do every day. A lot of times you don't get that thank you because you're in the trenches, making it happen, pushing hard, working, changing the game, challenging everyone. Thank you, mayors, for everything you do. I also want to say thank you to you. You know, you act as an icon for all of us in everything you do every day, and I couldn't say thank you enough for our friendship and your leadership.
Thank you as well. Would you all join me in thanking the entire panel for this? And again, we want to close by thanking the City Summit of the Americas, the State Department, partner organizations that made this possible, and hearing this, and all the incredible leaders here in Denver, Colorado. And finally, again, thank you to the roundtable of mayors. This is just a small sample of mayors who come together regularly for these conversations. These are amazing conversations, and I always learn something. So until we meet again, take care.
All right.
Good stuff.
Please welcome to the stage United States Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs, Brian Nichols.
Thank you, everyone. I am very cognizant of the fact that I'm the last thing that stands between you and dinner and fun. I just want to make a few quick remarks. Thank you so much for joining us at the City Summit today. Thank you to the organizers, this excellent panels that you heard from, particularly Mayor Hancock, the Inter-American Development Bank, the U.S. Mayoral Roundtable. I also want to commend Mayor Paes from Rio for his work on the Anti-Racist Cities Network and the cities that signed on to it today. Racism threatens the very foundations of democracy, and I'm proud to see mayors from our own hemisphere leading the charge to eradicate it. As Secretary Blinken said, the Ninth Summit of the Americas, at the Ninth Summit of the Americas when he announced it, that we would host this, cities are innovation labs. They're the engines of ingenuity and opportunity. 80% of the population of our hemisphere lives in urban areas, and we are committed to working with mayors and the people in our cities to move forward to make a better future. We're hosting the City Summit because our relationships and cooperation with partners all around the world and at all levels of government, from small towns and large megacities to national governments, show that democracies can deliver when and where it matters most. We've had some amazing conversations today covering such critical issues like the digital transformation, transition to clean energy, expanding green transportation options, welcoming migrants, and ensuring our citizens are safe and housed. I hope this summit is one where mayors can learn from each other, but also where mayors learn from civil society, academia, artists, indigenous communities, underrepresented groups, and international institutions. This summit is about uniting and working together to have a more prosperous, more sustainable, and brighter future for our communities. Some of the mayors here are great examples of this. I am sure we will see even more of these kinds of projects following the incredible interactions I have seen and heard today, including by the innovative leaders in these two panels. The challenges facing us have never been greater, from climate change to homelessness to crime. Fortunately, I see leaders at all levels coming together to meet these challenges. We have all seen how new ideas can spread faster than ever, thanks to new technologies, and how we can scale up solutions from the local level all the way up to the international level. And that's just day one. I look forward to continuing these conversations tomorrow, and I hope that you'll join us. Have a great evening.